خاصة. فلما وقعت المشكلة الاقتصادية في 2008 وارتفعت 2009 وبدا الترافيك ينزل، فيعني اليوتيلايزيشن تبع الطائرة ما كان كافي، فاضطروا انهم ينشئوا شركة خاصة للبزنس فلايت ويبيعوا الساعات الفلايت. وبالتالي الشركات، حنا تجي عندنا شركات اجنبيه تاخذ يعني رجال اعمال من المغرب وتاخذها، فالباب مفتوح. فقط حنا نركز كثير على امور الخاصه بالسلامه والامن واحترام القواعد هذه الموجوده في الاي اي بي.
Lou, you've debated this subject lots of times with very interesting views from a lot of people that we've met in the industry. Where do you see the role of the regulatory agencies in controlling such flights?
First, I'd like to say it's a pleasure being here. Bonjour, assalamu alaikum. It's nice to see this group. It's a pleasure once again, and thank you. I'd like to just start off by essentially asking a question. We have been talking about this for such a long time. There have been workshops where we've tried to identify the extent of this problem, and the question is, have we identified this problem from the standpoint of its financial impact to a particular state, a particular area, or to operators in a particular region? Because I think, and that this is a rhetorical question, I believe we have. I believe we know that there are some opportunists out there that are taking advantage of the fact that their aircraft is registered in a different state. They are now playing in a different geographical area where no one really is looking at them, or there is not a mechanism to, I don't want to say turn them in, but to alert the authorities of their home state or of the state in which they're operating of these inconsistencies. And I think the real issue comes down to the need to educate, both internally within our industry, because I think in this room, and I think within the MEBA organization, I believe we get it. We know what the issues are, and we are talking about these issues amongst ourselves. And it's important, yes, to educate not only the people in this room, but also the users that might be coming to the region and taking advantage of these conditions right now, but also to educate the traveling public, because this is where the disconnect is really existing. The folks that might charter an aircraft or take advantage of an aircraft in a particular area without knowledge of what is behind that certificate, what is behind those pilots, they're taking a tremendous chance. And one of the things that I have seen directly and in my business over many years, people relying on the fact that, look, I show up at an FBO, it's a shiny airplane, the crew is all spanking nice and well-dressed, but I get in the airplane, and once that door closes, we do not know what standards that aircraft is operating to. It goes back to the idea of, there's a pilot shortage. How are we training them? We have to educate the population to understand that it's not just a pilot is a pilot is a pilot. There are different standards and different levels of competency that we as an association must draw out, encourage, as well as civil aviation authorities must go above and beyond the norm or the standards and say, this is what we want from our pilots in our state so that they can achieve a higher level of integrity, quality, and above all, safety. So is it a problem? Yes, it is a problem. Can the civil aviation authorities around the globe help address it? I believe they can, but we have to educate internally and also educate externally so this problem can be brought to light and we can have meaningful change.
Thank you. This next question takes us into the safety area, actually, of the operation, like Lou mentioned about the certification of aircraft and pilots. And in the region here, we have a general perception that the rules and regulations put forward by the civil aviation authorities are more airline-centric rather than general aviation also And this puts undue costs and burdens and restrictions on the small operators who may be forced to commit certain funding to comply with such regulations. In the opinion of some, this may not be justifiable, and I would like to see changes to this. What are your views on such a perception? بعض الاوبريتورز الصغار بيشوفوا التنظيمات والتشريعات الموضوعة عائق أمامهم. Please, أستاذ نبيل.
شكرا على السؤال. في الحقيقة احنا we had regulation it's called 544. It's for a startup of airlines. Unfortunately, we put in the title startup for airlines and in airlines. So we don't have difference between little or big airline or private or work airline also. Work. So المشكل في الحقيقة احنا وضعنا هذا القرار ولكن في الأول ما كان فيه طلبات كثيرة. يعني تعرف السنوات الثمانينات والتسعينات ما كانوا فقط يعني اللي يأخذ البرايفت فلايت رؤساء الدول والسيوز. يعني ما كانت هذه اللي شار لها الأخ، ما كانت هذه المونتاليتي، ما كانت هذا النوع من التفكير في ربح الوقت، وبأن الوقت يقدر بثمن غالي أكثر من ربما من الفلايت اللي تؤدي عليه عدة دولارات. وبالتالي ما كان فيه طلب. ولكن بعدين في أواخر التسعينات وبداية third century فبدأ 21st century بدأ يعني الطلبات تكثر كثير، لأن أصبح الفكرة أن العالم أصبح قرية صغيرة، وبالتالي الموبيليتي الناس تتحرك بسرعة أكثر، وكسر البيزنس فيه في التريد طلع كثير. حتى في الOMC يتكلموا على هذه المسألة هذه. فيعني ما كانش في قوانين، ما كانت الأوتوريتيز ما كانت عندها مشكل. كان عندها مشكل ريجولاتوري تبع الايرلاينز، لان تذكروا ان في اواخر التسعينات كثرت حوادث الطائرات، فكان الاي كيو عملت لها من بين الايتمز تبعها، يعني الميشن تبعها هي السلامه والامن. فما كان عندها مشكل تبع البرايفت. وبالتالي انا لما تكون عندي لقاءات في المكتب مع كثير من الناس يحبوا يعملوا انشاء شركات خاصه، حقيقه نوضع هذا الاشكال. فاحنا نعمل ناخذ بعين الاعتبار، يعني ناخذ بالاعتبار راس المال الانفستمنتس، وناخذ بعين الاعتبار ثم نطرح هذه الاسئله فيما نسميه نحن عندنا في المغرب بالجدوى الاقتصاديه، دراسه الجدوى الاقتصاديه او ما البزنس بلان. فالبزنس بلان بطبيعه الحال الكوست والتشارج تبع الايرلاين مش نفس البرايفت فلايت، ونلعب هنا في هذه المساله هذه، وتطلب منا دراسات وتقنيات لما ندخل في الحسابات. ثم هناك يعني وبالتالي في قانون اخر في سنه 2012 دركنا الموضوع عملنا دراسه على الصعيد الوطني، وقررنا ان نفرق الاثنين. يعني يكون عندنا قرار يعني تنظيم خاص بالانشاء الايرلاينز الكبيره وانشاء الطائرات يعني الصغيره الا ان في الانشاء البزنس كومباني فلايت كومباني فعندها خصوصيات اخرى، خصوصيات تهم البايلوتس، تهم سميتو المطارات النزول، تهم الكوست تبع لان في وثم هناك عامه كما تعرفوا ساعتكم يعني الفلايت والبزنس كومباني يستعملوا اخر خرجات الطائرات، وبالتالي الاوتوريتيز لازم انه يعملوا ابديت اوف انفورميشن.
شكرا. Lou, what do you think of this perception? I think we've discussed this before, but again, we got mixed views on the subject from various regulatory agencies.
Thank you. This, as you say, we have discussed it, and the interesting thing here is each particular state essentially forms its regulations based on where it began. So it is only natural that many of the regulatory frameworks that we see are airline-centric, because that's essentially what they were trying to establish initially, is that some type of essential air service within their state, within their country. What we are seeing in our work with civil aviation authorities all over the world is that they are now in transition to develop more focused regulatory structures for business corporate aviation. If you look at the U.S., we have Part 91 for private, Part 135 for commercial on demand, Part 125 for large category air transport aircraft for charter, but not holding themselves out as charter. So there's, again, emerging levels of regulation there in the States, but also in many other countries around the world. So I think it's a good thing. We have to also keep in mind one very important fact, and that is the regulations by design are the foundational documents that support air transport within that state, if they're a signatory to the Chicago Convention, within ICAO, or in a particular country. And then what is built on top of those regulations really sets those countries off from the others, I think you would agree. And we have seen over the past several years some countries taking a stronger role by mandating certain additional requirements for their operators. For instance, some countries require all air transport operators to have the IOSA, the IATA Operational Safety Audit credential, and to maintain that, which is a good idea. But we are also seeing that within the business environment with MEBA's support of IBAC and the ISBEO standard, the International Standards Business Aircraft Operations. Very smart thing to, again, go above and beyond the foundational regulations and build in additional, more enhanced levels of safety and safety oversight and quality. And these are, I think, very important things that ought to be done. Interestingly enough, there are also some efforts afoot to help those air operators that can't achieve IOSA, because it's the only thing out there, to come up with something different, kind of like an IOSA light. And again, this is for corporate aviation, business aviation, charter operators who have large aircraft but do not have the ability or the pocketbook, the finances, to build in the infrastructure that an airline, a traditional airline, would have. So with IATA, they have recently teamed up with the Flight Safety Foundation to create what's called, and this is not the